a discussion that and the direction that that discussion was going, and I felt certain parts of it is not really what we need to discuss right now. But this was, I mean, I felt it. But because we're online, we're live, so Daniela, we have to do this formal thing. Daniela, thank you very much for being part of the session, and of course, you've come in earlier. So please tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll move into the discussion. Please.
Oh, it's always great to see you, Vikram. So nice to be here. And I'm in Arlington, Virginia right now, just outside of Washington, D.C. And I work at Georgetown University. I am the inaugural Ombuds for students, for our undergraduate and graduate students. And we have about a little more than 16,000 of those at Georgetown University. I'm a one-person show, but I do have some wonderful graduate students who work in the office with me. It's called the Office of the Student Ombuds. And before that, I was a dean in the business school for 7 years. I was an academic dean and advising dean. And I am an anthropologist by training, a cultural anthropologist. So I always look at issues with that anthropological lens.
That's a lot of stuff, Daniela. And of course, our conversations have been very interesting, the earlier ones, and I'm sure, I don't know whether people have watched it, but they should watch it, I think. Because look, I tell you the idea behind these discussions, and I was just talking to Andrea about that. The idea is that for me, creating work for mediators. Okay, that's the focus area. And I looked at the whole Ombuds thing and I said, of course, we've discussed it, that it hasn't really taken off in the US. And if you have to actually go out and ask, like you did with the children there or the students there, and they did say they did not know about it. So now why has that happened? Because if it was one of those things which worked so well, this should have been happening much earlier. This should have not have been the thing that you were starting off in Georgetown University. So I said, let's dissect the work of an ombuds. Which is what we're doing today, which we're going to do in terms of Swiss Army knife. What are the tools? So yesterday, what happened was the discussion went into how you use the tool. I'm saying we'll do that later. How to use that tool is a different thing, but what are those things that Ombuds does? So we just broad categorize it, like conflict coaching had come up in our discussion earlier. So that's one aspect that like you said, that Ombuds does. So let's look at various other things and then see that whether when a mediator, as a mediator and the role of a mediator and not the mediation itself. Sometimes you feel the mediator only does mediation. No, mediator also does a lot of things that were discussed yesterday. Like Reese was saying, listening. That's like we said, an organizational listener. So mediator does that. I mean, I'm not saying I'm going to push a mediator in and I'm saying, Daniela, no, we need a mediator instead of you. No, what I'm saying is that there are certain aspects that you as an ombuds might want to bring in a mediator, maybe in certain things. Maybe you want to bring in someone else. As you go along, you will see what the requirement is. So being an Swiss Army knife, maybe it might be good because you know parts of everything, but you don't have to be the knife. You don't have to always be, because as the knife, I'm sure there are other brands, like maybe say Winchester knives are very well known. So maybe they are specific for a certain activity. So as a mediator, if you have to bring in a mediator, you could bring it. So you become a central figure. And then if required, if you are able to do all those things, perfect. But if you feel, no, I want to bring in someone, you can bring in someone. So I'm just trying to see what kinds of options we can create, because I really feel that this is a good concept. Having a person in the organization available to students or employees, and that trust is there. And of course, the informal, like where are those 4 points, Daniela? We like those 4 points behind you. But yeah, independent, informal, confidential, and
impartial.
Yes.
I usually have them on my blackboard. I'm at my home office today, so I don't have my my usual ombuds office where they're written out. But yes, you got them right.
Yeah. So basically the point being that all those things definitely are, we know, okay, these are things that happen. But within that, there are lots of activities that happen. This is just the framework that you put in. Okay, under this framework, this is going to be independent and confidential and informal and impartial. Perfect. We need that person. But what all do you expect that person to do? One is expectation. One is what does that person actually do? And then for each stakeholder. So Michelle is here. Hi, Michelle. And Daniela was a little worried.
Hi there.
Daniela said she's only going to have me to talk to. So she
Well, I'll be here just for a few minutes. I can't stay on for too long. It's a very busy day, but I know that there's been a lot of coordination behind the scenes to get folks together. So I just wanted to be sure to hop on for a few minutes. And
actually, could have kept it tomorrow also, because I think tomorrow was one of those days that everyone was okay with. It's just that day after there's a symposium starting. So I felt tomorrow I'll have some work in relation to that.
Sure.
So, but we can always continue the conversation tomorrow also. I have no problem with that. We can do that. We can fix it up. I mean, I'm totally informal. So confidential, I don't know. Everything was in YouTube. So confidential, definitely not. So Michelle, basically background of what we're talking about here. We've had our discussions on this, and yesterday we had one discussion on Ombuds Swiss Army knife. The idea behind these discussions is that just to see what all an Ombuds is doing, and being a multifaceted kind of a profile. Now, in that, are there areas which we need? I mean, are we looking at specific people with specializations coming in? And why is it that the whole concept of Ombuds did not take off the way it should have? Because I'm saying I feel that's an important position, but what work should an Ombuds do? What all responsibilities have been put on them? Then how do the various stakeholders look at it? How does the board of an organization look at it? How does the student look at it in case of Daniela? In organizations, how do the employees look at it? How do say the HR, how does the HR look at it? So everyone, how are they looking at it? What are they expecting from it? What are they getting? Are there gaps somewhere? How do those gaps get filled up? And for me, like I was telling Daniela, for me, I have to create space for mediators. So how do I fit them into the picture? And we were talking about it. One is the role of mediators and one is mediation. So mediators definitely do a lot of things that Ombuds do, definitely, in terms of how they go about the process. So can we look at that as a broader role available for mediators? But certain specifics we are going to now discuss. So I think I've given too much of a background, which I do not want to direct the conversation in any direction. So Michelle, how much time do you have?
Not a lot. I can probably stay on maybe 15, 20 minutes maximum.
Perfect.
We'll see.
Perfect. So Daniela is going to start. We've had our little introductory thing. I should not have given you this very broad kind of direction to it, but just think that I did not say anything. Yes, Daniela.
Well, I would love to have Michelle introduce herself too, because I'm not taking your role, Vikram. Don't worry, but because we've never met. But I will.
Okay, you haven't met her. She was there.
No.
Michelle, you didn't come in earlier?
I wasn't there yesterday, so I was not part of the conversation yesterday.
No, not yesterday. Yesterday only Reese and I think Reese and.
I don't think Daniela was on the last conversation that I was on either.
Oh, okay, Daniela was there.
She may have joined and left, but we may have just missed each other.
Melanie came in yesterday. Melanie came in. Yeah. So, okay, Michelle, please, you have to tell.
Sure.
And
Hi, Daniela.
Hi.
Very nice to meet you. My name is Michelle Arvid. I actually currently am not, I am doing some Ombuds work, but I have some Ombuds work in my past as well. Currently working with FEMA as an ADR advisor. I also have a private practice in which I do conflict resolution work, as well as some external Ombuds consulting, currently working with a small healthcare system, local healthcare system, consulting with them as they make some decisions about whether or not they're going to open an Ombuds office, and if an Ombuds office is the right fit for them, or if they're actually needing something else more like an ADR office. But I come to conflict resolution work from a background of psychotherapy. So that definitely informs how I practice and how I view the field, and how I interact with folks who have a different experience or entryway to the field.
Perfect.
I think, Daniela, I'm not sure if you already introduced yourself, but I'd love to hear more about you as well.
No, I did, but I'll just really quickly.
I missed it.
That's okay. I'm at Georgetown University. I'm an Ombuds for our undergraduate and graduate students there. And the office is fairly new still. It's about, it was established July 1st of 2021. I don't have a conflict resolution background in terms of I'm an anthropologist by training. So that really informs my ombuds practice and how I listen and what I listen for when I'm with visitors. So going to Vikram's question about the tools, I guess, that and you know, tell me if I'm wrong about the question that you were asking, Vikram, but it seemed that it was about kind of the tools that ombuds use and how we can bring mediators more into the discussion. I will say that I mean, in the last few years, I've heard more and more about ombuds, probably because I was, you know, involved in the training and everything. But I do think that the global pandemic had a big, especially in higher education, the pandemic and mental health issues that a lot of students are experiencing, and not just students, but everyone, has really made leadership and higher education think about ways in which ombuds can, you know, can bring issues to light, systemic issues to light, across university campuses. So, for instance, there are universities that had that used to have ombuds, and because of financial reasons or budgetary reasons, they decide to stop the position, and now they are bringing the ombuds position back. So I do, I know that you were saying that it's not as widespread, and I do think that there has to be a lot more education around what an ombuds is, and we're trying to do that at Georgetown. But there is a big push for this kind of, you know, conflict resolution, and place that confidential space where people can come and talk about any kind of issue that they're having. Mediators, I do, you know, I would like to hear more from you, Vikram, where you think that mediators can and ombuds can come together and really work together in this space, because I think that there are a lot of times and opportunities, and I'm just thinking for myself at Georgetown, you know, if there are student organizations or student groups that are in conflict, or when there are interpersonal relationships that need mediation, and they're multi-party issues, then I think that having another person, a mediator, a trained mediator, would be a really important, you know, important place where ombuds and mediators could work together.
Yeah. Another role that I'll talk about after Michelle gives us her thoughts. There's an interesting thing that's come in my mind right now. Yes, Michelle, something we don't know what we're talking about. We don't know. There are no questions.
I was about to say, I'm not exactly sure how to respond, and I recognize that there's been an ongoing conversation, Vikram, that you've been bringing to the table about the role of mediators and how that intersects with ombuds work and things like that. And I think one thing that, and we discussed this a little bit in the last one I was on as well, is that depending on what type of ombuds the ombuds is ombudsing, I think that makes a difference too. Because I think I look at ombuds work as being a spectrum. On one side of the spectrum, you have advocacy, and on the other side of the spectrum, I think you have full neutrality. At least that's the way I look at it. And depending on where the ombuds lands, what the purpose of their role is, depending on whatever context they're working in, I think that makes a big difference in the degree to which mediation is necessary, is a part of their role, is a role that is a service that they may need to outsource, etc. So I don't know that there is one blanket statement we can make about that, because every context is different. I think organizational ombuds, for example, are likely to do more mediation than other types of ombuds might do. I think, again, it just depends on the context. I think it depends on the place and the context in which they're doing the ombuds role, but even a wider context, culturally, what's going on, historically, what's happened. And Daniela mentioned education. I think one of the themes that continues to come up in conversations regarding ombuds and ombuds work is outreach and education. And I think those two things are not inseparable. And so much, I think, of pretty much any ombud's role, any person who is doing ombuds work, so much of their role is the outreach part, is making those connections, is helping people understand, and helping people understand from a sort of structural and theoretical perspective, what is an ombuds, what is the ombuds, this ombuds that I'm talking to, what is their role, what is the attitude towards the ombuds office or program or ombuds person in this institution or in this setting, whatever it is, and helping folks to integrate with that understanding. And until they can do that, they're not very likely to buy into the process. So I don't know that I'm answering any question, Vikram, with this, but I think that that is something that I just want to point out. That's something that's consistently come up. And one thing we also talked about last time was this trend that many of us are seeing as we speak with people who are interested, organizations with various groups that are interested in opening an ombuds office. And, you know, through those sort of interview processes, helping educate them on what an ombuds typically does or theoretically does in our view. So that outreach, I don't know that that'll ever stop, but I hope that the more outreach and connect we all do, the more people will become familiar with it. And so maybe we'll lower the hurdle as we come into these different contexts and try and do the work.
No, I think what you're saying basically in relation to even the existing structure, say what Daniela is doing. Now, to list out what is her role, and if you want to put out an advertisement or you want to ask people to apply for a post, you have to put down what the person does. So Daniela, when you were applying for this post, did you have a list of things that they told you that this is what you'll be doing?
So I came into the ombuds role a little differently, Vikram, I will say, than some others. So I was kind of tapped on the shoulder and asked to open this office and set it up. So I a part of what I did really was in the first year was a learning curve, walking on that learning curve. What they were looking for is someone who was an active listener, who had cultural competence, who understood the institution, but could also kind of be an inside outsider. So that has come up in other conversations where, and in anthropology, when we talk about making the strange familiar and the familiar strange, and that's kind of how I look at it as well sometimes. I know there are theoretical issues about that, but in this case, being kind of that inside outsider that can listen to issues and then in an objective or as objective, non-judgmental manner, kind of talk to leadership about what is going on and what those systemic patterns and issues are. That was one of the big tools that the ombuds should have. Building trust and rapport. Michelle really was pointing to that as well. And I think that's important. Someone, an ombuds has to be someone who is approachable, who can kind of inspire that trust so that you don't just say, oh, I'm confidential and I'm impartial and I'm independent, but who really, embodies that. And that takes a lot of finesse, I would say, and even diplomacy, especially when working with other people across campus. I mean, I will say I'm an organizational ombuds. So I often have to say, I'm not advocating for anyone. I'm not advocating for the university or for the individual. I'm advocating for fair, equitable policies and processes. But sort of repeating that and having people understand that the ombuds office is not here to point fingers or to blame, but really to help figure out how we can look at those tension points in the community and try to, in a sense, fix them, or or at least brainstorm of how to make things better for all of our constituents.
No, but the thing is, everything that you said definitely fits into what a mediator should be like. So when I think what we have to start, I think where we should have is this whole blind man and the elephant situation with the ombuds and the mediator, both. Because definitely your concept of what you would say about an ombuds or a mediator may be different from what Michelle thinks. So Michelle is talking about various types of ombuds, and like she said, in a university, maybe organizational. So she's going to tell us what are the other ombuds that you are looking at and what is it that they do, and then we'll see how people understand the ombuds concept. But Daniela like she said, she just got in, but how I'm looking at it is that someone thought that Daniela will fit the role. Now, what that package that Daniela brings in, she also will not know. Those people will also not be able to dissect that. But they had some understanding of what an ombuds should do and what kind of a person they're looking for. So it is a package. To even dissect it and say these are the elements of it might be difficult. But looking at Daniela, talking to her, they said, no, she is the kind of person this organization needs to be out there as a connection with the students. That's what I'm thinking. So there was something in someone's mind, and what were those things? Some people might not be able to list out. And that's what I keep saying about the mediator concept, that there is a mediator mindset. Whatever today out there in the world, people might talk about mediators and they talk about trainings and certifications. I'm not concerned with that. I actually criticize that concept. I won't get into it here, but I criticize all that. For me, it's the mediator mindset. Same thing. Is it an ombuds mindset? Is it an ombuds conduct as a person? Because trust seems to be something which comes up in relation to a mediator or an ombuds in that kind of relationship. So trust cannot be something that you can certify or teach or in any way train. It is something that you create because of a lot of factors that you are. So we're trying to, I think that common thing I can see in terms of the conduct of the person and various other things that you've listed out, approachability, definitely. So I think we've kind of getting there in terms of the understanding, but Michelle is going to tell us about the various types of ombuds that you're talking about, because sometimes I feel a little whether I'm just coming, I'll just give me 30 seconds. The concept of ombuds in some parts of the world, ombudsman that they had, was actually not the role that the US talks about in terms of ombuds. Their role was that they were out there as some people were, of course, as the government set up this ombudsman office. And then they had various sectors had ombudsmen, the banking sector, insurance sector, that their role was not really a mediator or that kind of thing. They were trying to bring people together, yes, but they became arbitrators after a point. So now in some people's mind, an ombuds might be that arbitrator. And if that word links with each other, then they might not have that faith in the process. Because what is this person really doing? Because do the people really know? Daniela went out, let me tell Michelle, Daniela went out in a university, which is a very nice thing she did, and asked people, do you know what an ombuds is? And let Daniela answer it, but whatever little video she put on Instagram, they had no idea. So point is, first of all, what are people connecting to if they're familiar with it? And if they're not familiar with it, definitely they have nothing to connect to. So it's just a word that they hear and they have no idea what that word means. So Michelle, what are the various types of ombuds that you have and what do they do?
Well, I don't know that I'm exactly qualified to summarize this in full, but before I will speak to that in just a moment and share my thoughts on it, Vikram. But before I do that, I want to highlight something, which is that I don't believe that this element of trust is created or exists solely with the ombuds person or ombuds team themselves. I think there is a relationship or an interplay that happens between whoever is in the role or on the team that's playing that role and the environment around them. So I may come in, let's say I'm brought in to a university. One thing I think we're seeing a lot of now is various organizations recognizing that there are problems. Oh, we thought there weren't problems, but there are problems. And now we need somebody to fix those problems. And one of the ways we're going to do that is by hiring an ombuds so that everybody believes that we want to resolve things. We want things to be better. And one thing that I think sometimes gets maybe either forgotten or not thought about, not considered, is that there is an element of institutional trust as well. So let's say we're talking about a university. If something has happened at the university that has led to a break in the trust that students or faculty or the community has for the institution, if the institution is bringing in an ombuds, that may not have that strong interplay. There may be additional hurdles for the ombuds. It may be that ombuds, for many years doesn't gain the trust. I think that we can't just talk about trust in terms of the person doing the work. I think trust is also contextual. So I want to highlight that. And I think that that's important too, because that comes back to culture as well. So let's take it out of the organization now, and let's look at various regions across the world. Trust happens differently as a result of different things in different parts of the world. Even within, if we're talking about the US, different parts of the US, within different sectors, trust is developed organizationally in different sectors differently. So I just wanted to speak on that for a moment, because I think we're doing a disservice to say that trust is this, I think we're doing a disservice to essentialize trust in that way. I think it's much more nuanced and much more sort of layered. And I do agree with 100% with Daniela's statements earlier that trust is a big part of it, and building trust and rapport is a huge part of that mindset that I think you're trying to detangle, Vikram. But I think it's a little bit more sticky than that. And so that can then, I guess, segue me to answering your question. And like I said, I don't think I'm really qualified to speak on all the different types of ombuds people, but I mentioned earlier that the way I look at it is that there is a spectrum of advocate to neutral. And advocate could be advocate for the clients, could be advocate for the organization or agency or body that they are hired by. I think advocate could be for a lot of things. And I think that neutral could be neutral for a lot of reasons as well. So if we're looking at sort of that really, I guess, traditional or sort of classic ombuds person that I think most of us talk about when we talk about an ombuds person, then, that might be that organizational person that's working at a federal agency or in a university or at some sort of, tech company or something like that. But you can have, it could have an executive ombuds person or somebody who's more embedded into the legislative body. You can have, various goals. So I don't know that I can speak to all the kinds, but I think I'll just highlight some of those differences and hope that helps answer the question, or at least start to answer the question.
Because I tell you, this concept of advocacy and neutral, those are actually issues that we need to discuss that, because this concept of neutral definitely is debated today in relation to the mediation itself, because everyone used to say neutral. Now, today the concept, it should have been discussed a long time back, but it took one direction and everyone said neutral. Can you really be neutral? There was something that Desmond Tutu said, and there was something which, let me read it out there. Of course, I'll find the actual saying, but basically it's about the elephant having its foot on the mouse's tail. And in that kind of a situation, if you are going to be neutral, the mouse is not really going to like it. So if there are power imbalances there, are you really going to be saying so? In this kind of a situation where, say, Daniela is in a situation and she's going to say something which is so nice. So, P.S. Daniela, I'm not going to say anything. You've unmuted yourself, which something interesting is going to come out. Is there something coming out?
I'm sorry. I'm just going to interject. Because I do have to sign off. My break from my workday is over, so I have to sign off. I really appreciate the conversation, and I would say I agree with you, Vikram. These are things we need to unpack further. So I appreciate you bringing, that point to the table and sort of putting that in the spotlight. I will watch the replay to hear.
No, we'll continue the discussion. We'll continue it. If you people want to do it tomorrow, I'm okay with tomorrow also. We can definitely continue it tomorrow. I'll give the same time out. Let's
so continue. I think this concept of what is neutral, I'll just say maybe it's not are they neutral or not neutral? Is it, are they neutral enough? So
Should
maybe
they be?
that's what I meant by what I was.
Yeah. Should they
Exactly.
be?
So
First of all,
thank
yeah,
you
that
so
discussion
much.
will come out definitely. So thank you very much. And
Yeah.
next time you come in, if you're coming in tomorrow, same time, let's do it tomorrow
I'm
also.
not coming in tomorrow,
Okay,
unfortunately.
then
I
we'll
have a
see.
full day, but
Okay, we'll see at
best
the
of
end of
luck
this how it
and
goes, and we'll
okay.
so we'll do it later.
Enjoy.
All right, see you. Bye.
Nice to meet you, Daniela. Bye-bye. Okay.
So I think, Daniela, basically what we've come down to, I think, is also how people understand the Ombuds itself. I think this part of
Yeah.
it, we need a little more, I mean, we need more inputs on that. But let's, because right now we have you and you have, of course, a certain understanding of what the organization is looking at in Georgetown. So let's look at it from that perspective right now and bring in other ombuds and what they do and how is it different from what we think that they should be doing. Because if advocacy is some aspect which is connected to ombuds, that takes it into a different direction altogether. So I want to also understand when she said that, of course, she could not spend more time, but we can have another discussion on that because I really want to understand this. Advocacy and ombuds actually may not be something that we think go together. So how does that fit in? We'll have to see that. So we can have that. Neutrality definitely is an issue which I feel needs to be discussed, because the good thing is in your 4 elements, neutral is not there. And I'm really happy about that.
Yeah, I think that your allusion to the Desmond Tutu quote is very apt here, because I don't like to say that I'm a neutral, even though that's in one of the definitions that the IOA, the International Ombuds Association, uses, a designated neutral. I always say to visitors, I feel like I define myself more as looking at things in a multi-partial way. So multi-partial is more the word that I would want to use. And there is a tension between this idea of being an advocate or not in my role, because I don't want to be seen as someone who is partial. And at the same time, the visitor who comes to my office really at that moment needs an advocate, right? They need someone who can understand their perspective. And so when I think of advocacy, I think more about how am I helping alleviate this person's suffering sometimes? How am I helping to alleviate their the issues that they're having at this moment? And that's part of the advocacy. So I don't think anyone can be completely neutral. Maybe they can. I can't be a completely neutral person. So that's one thing. And the other thing I just wanted to address with Michelle also was talking about the issue of trust. Yes, you can't just have the trust lie in the person. That's completely true. So ombuds, we have a charter that we write, and that is kind of this agreement between the organization or the institution and how the ombuds will practice. And so I think that some of the trust also lies in these more formalized structures as well. And I don't know, for mediators, Vikram, what kind of, sort of putting it back to you a little bit, what kind of formal, structures do you have as a mediator?
Look, you're talking to someone. Yeah, you're talking to someone who definitely break structures if they exist, because I really do not want structures for the sake of structures. For me, it's very clear. This is, like, if you use the word informal, it's such an informal process. And in that process, definitely trust aspect of it is important. And if you, whatever you might say in relation to a structure being created in an organization, it's you, the person, it's Daniela, who they are going to connect with and they're going to trust. Whatever the history might be in terms of the institution, that is definitely, it might take time for people to really say, okay, Daniela has come in, let's see how she goes, and we've had this bad experience, or whatever they might have. That's baggage. But finally, it's the person. Same thing with mediators. For some reason, I think people don't realize maybe that it's the person that comes in. It's not a panel of mediators. You can choose who you want. People are not, I'm telling you, that they are very, it's their personal, it's something so personal to them. It's not something they're going to take to someone. The kind of mediation that I'm promoting. of course, you have courts and you have panels, and someone is just given to you. Mediator is given to you. Okay, so and so, go sit with them. Some courts in the US, okay, you have half an hour, sit with them, come back to me. So the judge would tell them. That's not the mediation we need to promote. And that's I'm saying that's another world that I'm just keeping it aside. So for me, I'm very clear that the individual, the rapport, or the approachability, or the trust, and everything that the individual brings in is really, really important. And that is what I'm saying, that individual, that person in institutions and organizations, let's not give it a name right now. For a moment, let's remove mediator, let's remove ombuds. We don't need to have a name. We are just down to the core activities that are expected from that person. And can it be one person? So the Swiss Army knife concept, or does it have to be broken and down into different people with different roles? What is the purpose behind having this position? What was the purpose? Where was it supposed to go? Where did it actually go? But before that, Melanie is on. She's on. She just sent a message saying she's happy to join tomorrow. So Melanie, if you're listening, please write out there. We are going to have it tomorrow. Just confirm that you're going to be there. Let's just continue the conversation. So if that's the answer that you're looking for, I don't know. For me, there are no structures. There might be people who might be limited by structures. I am not. Maybe some institutions try to do it, because this whole continuing that whole formal concept of mediation which developed. For me, I'm saying mediation did not really take off because of that in some parts of the world, and even in the US, I don't consider that is taken off, because if up till I don't find full-time mediators, if I'll go out look for them, maybe I'll find 5, 10, whatever. I mean, you can count them on your fingertips kind of situation. So if that doesn't happen in the last 40, 45 years, there's an issue somewhere for mediators also, for mediation also. So I'm questioning both parts of it. I'm not saying it's only the ombuds, that also. And let's see, where are we going wrong on that? And can we create a situation of a person, forget the name of that, whatever it's going to be called, but what role would various stakeholders want that person to have? And let's look at it from that, how it has to develop. So that's kind of the broad discussion, and don't take it as I know where it's going, because I also don't know where it's going to go, because Michelle picked up certain aspects, someone else will bring in something else, we'll continue it. 50 years, if nothing has happened, we don't have to get out a result in 5 conversations. Let's take it forward, but let's refine it to a point that yes, people connect to that person, connect to the activity of that position that you've created, and actually benefit from it. Because up till that connection doesn't happen and they don't know what really is happening, I mean, okay, we can keep educating, but if we are telling them about something or doing something which they don't really connect with, or maybe if there's the trust deficit is there, then what is that trust deficit? Why is it there? How do we in some way get that? So broad, I mean, I'm saying really broad at this stage. Sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that there's agency and structure. So I will push back a little bit. And, you know, I'm not going to be the last ombuds, hopefully, for students at Georgetown. So I do want that trust in the ombuds office to exist. So I don't think that I am the be all and end all ombuds. In other words, yes, people hopefully can connect with me. And I hope that when I'm not here anymore, that they can connect with the next person, of course. I'm
not agreeing with you, but we'll take this up after you finish.
Yeah. Okay. No, and this is interesting because it's you know, personality, the idea of charisma, that all comes in, right? But so I'm interested in that as well. So where does this conversation go? Are we talking about the different tools now in the Swiss Army knife, and you know, whether we're using a blunt instrument or a bottle opener or whatever it might be? Yeah, so
and you're the best person to answer, Daniela, because you've just come into this area. Someone who's been part of it for years might not have looked at it. Now you've really come in and you're really looking at the various aspects, so you're the right person to bring these things out.
Well, and I always love to hear from experienced ombuds as well, because I mean, there are a lot of tools in the toolbox, right? I think that a Swiss Army knife is one of them. And I actually have to learn, or I want to learn, and I benchmark with other ombuds offices because they have some of the tools that I just don't have yet, right? As a one-person office. For instance, being able to, if you look at some websites out there, they have videos of lunch and learns or how to resolve conflict. Like they've already put all these things in place, these places where people in the community can go and learn about what an ombuds does and how to resolve issues, and they're wonderful. So there are those tools out there. And what I bring and what others bring in is really trying to understand the place where you are. I mean, it's always about sort of local knowledge and then trying to figure out how to work within that organization. And I think that that's always going to be something that that an ombuds has to do, or a mediator has to do, right? Sometimes, and I'd like to actually hear from you what you think, because I feel like no matter what, I am a full-time ombuds. It is a full-time job. So I feel that even though I am that inside outsider and I'm not accountable to any office or any person at the university, I still have a big stake in that community that I am part of. So I don't know if that's one of the differences, Vikram, between what the ombuds and a mediator who but who comes in and does a mediation with someone or with an office.
No, this is what I'm trying to create the difference between. That's what happens sometimes in the discussion. Look, a mediator doing a mediation is one part of the activity, but mediation as a person and the role of a mediator is definitely much broader. And I've been talking about, and which is what I'm trying to create, the role of a mediator in society at large. People, what are you doing? Get people to have conversations, create that whole space for dialogue, being that fair, of course, omnipartial or multipartial, whatever way you want to put it. Basically, the power imbalances that are there in society, be able to handle that. So that's one aspect of it. So I'm saying that we have, as mediators, a much larger role. Similarly, in an organization, let's not look at it as the person doing mediations. So that's okay. That mediator can do mediations. But all the other things that an ombuds is doing, does a mediator also do that and can do that? And are we just using terminology which we can change and then create a space for something that actually you have people doing it already? Because the numbers that you need, I mean, if you look at the situation, if you look at all universities and organizations having it, you need huge numbers. That's on one side. That's the opportunity. On the other side, there are mediators there who don't have work as mediators, and they want to do it. They're passionate about it. So if we can connect these two things together and just get out of their mind and look, this ombuds concept, yes, you've been using that word, but if you break it up, which is what we're trying to do today to some extent, we'll keep doing this. When we break it up, we'll find out, isn't this what a mediator does and can do? But what we'll do is, let's put a picture out there. The pictures are better. So this is what various Swiss Army knives are like. Okay, so you can have all this and only have this. So Swiss Army knives is a wide area. So what I thought, maybe next time, let's get it when people come in, we'll play a little game. Everyone writes what a Swiss Army knife, whatever they think a Swiss Army knife has. Just look at these things. This is what a Swiss Army knife can be. So, okay, someone says scissor. At the same time, next to it, you have to write, what do you think an ombuds does? So like example, scissor on one end, conflict coach on the other end. Similarly, we keep adding, and you'll find, let's see how many things we can put on a Swiss Army knife and how many we can put onto a ombuds. That's an activity we'll do. So that's what I'm saying. Even the word Swiss Army knife is just a word that I used. But did you think of this, or did you think of this? It's an elephant in the blind man situation everywhere. So I think we have to open out the discussion. I don't know whether Daniela thought this was a Swiss Army knife. Did you think that this can be a Swiss Army knife?
So
look at these things.
I've had many Swiss. I'm one of those people who I love Swiss Army knives. But now if you talk to my husband, he would say, you know, the best thing is just to have one good knife.
Exactly. That's what we were talking about. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I was one of those people who love to have different types. But the important thing is to always have one in your pocket, right? That's what's important. Not exactly because if you don't have it in your pocket at the time that you need it, then what is a knife? What is the purpose of the Swiss Army knife? You can't use it. So I guess the Swiss Army knife is also, for me, it's not just about the tools, it's about how they connect people. Because if, you know, when I was traveling in Europe when I was in my early 20s and I would go all over Europe and backpack and go to youth hostels, I had a Swiss Army knife on me all the time because there was always someone in the train that you were with who needed to, you know, cut their baguette or, you know, or cut something with the scissors or open a bottle, right? When we still had glass bottles and all that, which we still do. But that person then was connecting with another person and was then talking to them. Oh, where are you from? Oh, I'm from here. Where are you going? What are you doing? So it's that connection that Swiss Army knife brings to mind whenever I think of Swiss Army knife.
Yeah, no, I think this is that discussion we're going to also have. That one, okay, multifaceted, but are you missing out on something? So you need a good knife. Are you looking for a good knife? So can you bring in a good knife when you want it? But if you generally have all these various small things available and you want to cut something which can be cut with a small little knife, why do you need that? So which is what we're trying to do. And that whole jack of all trades, master of none, which people, I mean, that quote by itself is, I think the last part of that quote is missed out. You know the entire quote? Yes or no?
I don't know the entire quote, but I know where you're going.
No, sometimes people look at it as a negative because they pick up that quote, but actually it was not supposed to be that negative. It was supposed to be a positive. Let's put that quote out. This is what the entire quote is. But oftentimes better than a master of one. So this gets missed out. Everyone looks at this and this stops it here. So this is what I'm saying. Maybe it's good to be a jack of all trades. Maybe that's a good concept. So let's not put it down as something which is, I mean, bad. I'm saying we should have to have a broader discussion on it. If you do not need that knife and you need this broader thing, because of course, be it mediations or the work that you do, so many aspects are going to come out there. And can you only say, okay, I'm going to be only looking at this part, but all these other things that you bring in as a person, I'm still saying it's a person. People can write whatever they want on a document and say, this is everything that an ombuds needs to do. Finally, it's a person who has to do it. Or we are saying that let's program machines and we put all this into those machines and say, this is, you come to a machine and someone might be working on it somewhere on this whole machine learning, artificial intelligence thing. Okay, these are the inputs that the person will give, and this is what's going to come out of it, and it's all mapped out. But that's not what we want, and I don't think that's the way we want it to go forward. Where's the heart, soul, and spirituality part of it, which I keep discussing, and that's a discussion I keep having. So, what the heart, soul, spirituality that Daniela brings in, only Daniela can bring in. You might say whatever in terms of structure, whatever you can list out, whatever you want to. The trust in the office or the person is joint. I think it's just combined. It's not going to be, you can't say, okay, just trust the office. Whoever we bring in, it'll carry on. It can't carry on. And that's where maybe people go wrong and the individual gets lost out on it. So I think what you bring in as a person, you might define what the office would do. Maybe let's look at it from the other side, reverse side. You might be bringing in so much which whatever you might have already read and your association has and everything, perfectly all right. Let them write what they want to. But finally, what do you bring in? And what have you seen in the last, 1 year or whatever you've been doing this? What have you seen are the things that you have brought in and that is connected with people and various stakeholders? Let's look at various stakeholders, how it's connected with your board. When they brought you in, they had something in mind. But when you came in, definitely you brought in lots more. I'm sure there's some feedback, some discussion on that happens, or if it's too early, I don't know. Similarly, with the HR, with the students, anyone else, whoever else is involved, what did you feel? I mean, what was your feeling as to what you brought in and what was expected from your role? Is there something there?
Wow. So this is getting more into the psychotherapy that Michelle had more expertise in. I mean, I think what I bring in was, or what I brought in to this role was really the fact that, I had a lot of experience as an educator, and I could see things from a lot of different perspectives already. Just the fact that I had been in the classroom as a faculty member teaching, dealing with different student issues already in the classroom, and working with different types of people, being able to, and also being a staff member. So someone who was on that side, and then, someone who definitely has student success and student support and those kinds of issues in the foreground. So I think that's what they saw. Also, someone who can definitely who has a social justice bent, right? Someone who wants to make sure that every student, or every visitor, I should say, who comes to the office is treated with respect or and civility. And I think that those are the things that people are really looking for in an ombuds or in this office. So, sometimes someone who is a trusted navigator as well. So who understands the resources around, or who can at least do some fact finding, who can do research, and who wants to do that research for you if they don't know the answer. So I think maybe that's what I brought into it. I'm sure, if you ask someone else, they may say something differently, but that's kind of how I see myself in this role.
I think what we need to do is that, one, that there was some kind of a concept that they had in relation to the office, which could have been based on information that they picked up from, say, the Ombuds Association or some other institution. They read something out there and they said, okay, this is what an Ombuds does. So let's understand what they had in mind, because there must have been some paper that they had created on that aspect. Okay, perfect. They had picked that up. But from the students' perspective, we know that they had no idea. They have no idea. So clearly that's a blank slate. So we at least can ask them, look, Ombuds word is going to be confusing for them. So let's not even get into that word. But what would they want as a connection with the institution? What is it that person should bring in? What would it be something that they connect with? As one, in terms of what their needs are, in terms of whatever, I don't know, whatever their needs might be. And the other is their needs in the person itself. What is missing? There's something lacking. You're kind of filling up something which is lacking maybe. So what is that they feel is lacking in relation to their connection with the institution? So,
yeah.
So let's just understand from their perspective. I mean, there's no harm in even talking to a few. We can always bring them into a Zoom session. Like we can have one discussion with them. Why not? Why are we just discussing between ombuds?
Yeah.
Let's look at the user. Let's ask the user. And here we have a user who actually doesn't know that they're a user. They've been put into a situation where they've said, you are a user, there is an office available. But if they do not know what they're looking out for, and an alien word coming into their vocabulary is not going to help. So let's talk to them and tell them, I mean, without usage of the word, let's just have a conversation with them. I said, look, I mean, There is a concept where there is someone in an organization available to students to go to, which is not part of the hierarchy of the institution and is an independent person. Again, we can again separately talk about the whole concept of an outsourced ombuds or an in-house ombuds. We can all that part of it, how it should work, what they are comfortable with. Why are we pushing it down on their throat? Let's ask them. Are you comfortable with an organization setting up an office in the organization or in an institution and saying this is an ombuds? And if you have this, go to them. Are you comfortable doing that? Or would you rather have someone available outside the structure, but a space available in the institution, or the space also should not be in the institution? Whatever. I mean, let's say that there is no concept of an ombuds. We are just today thinking of a person available to various stakeholders, and let's develop it from there, rather than saying there is a structure which has already been there for 50 years. Now we have to play with this. We don't have to. We can create from scratch, because I feel that that person, that position, or that whatever the office, if you want to call it, that concept is something which is important. But how it has to be structured, I think something has not gone right there. One, of course, like I said, on some places, that arbitrator role that the ombudsman picked up, that word then gets, I mean, in someone's mind, if they've heard it somewhere, if they have, no one has, but if they have, and they connect it to that, that goes totally against the concept. That's another concept altogether. Ombudsman doing an arbitration. How do you push it down to someone else saying, no, this ombuds is not that ombuds. That one does it, but this one doesn't do it. So I think this, if the word has got, I mean, diluted or has gone into different direction, we can change words. We can call it something else. So that is also open. We can talk to if you're talking with one stakeholder, of course, is the student. We can talk to them. The other people, let's bring in other people in the institutions. Let's bring them in. Let's talk to them about it. Let's do that, I think.
Yeah, I like that idea. I mean, in this case, it was actually students and student leaders who asked for an ombuds position. So obviously someone had done their homework and they thought, okay, this is something that we need at this university, at Georgetown University, because we don't have anyone who is there. And I think that what the student leaders at that time were really hoping for was someone who took them seriously and who cared. And that's where that bridge between the administration, between faculty and students there, as you were saying, there was something that was cut, that was not, the bridge was not as sturdy as it should be. And so these student leaders decided that they really wanted someone in that position. And so that's really where I feel like that I can create a sturdier bridge, I guess.
Yeah. No, I mean, I was wanting to point it out when you were talking about your backpacking trip to Europe. What you bring in from there is also a very important aspect of the entire process. How you can relate to various people, the whole concept of the cultural part that we brought in. Because here you were put into a situation, not pushed, but you were there and you had to interact with people. You had to create relationships in that train with your Swiss Army knife or without it. You were creating connections and you had to do them fast. And of course, that trust, that suddenly you're meeting someone on a train somewhere, and that to be able to create that trust, that you walk into the same hostel together and check in together and have beds together, doing all that needs a connection. So connecting to people and how you did it, all that experience is important. So this is a person bringing in that experience. It's not, okay, I'll create a structure and anyone can fit into it. So that's why let's talk to these student leaders who actually thought about it, that maybe they read about it and they set a position. What were they looking at? And how, when you came in, maybe you don't, we can send you into the waiting room, bring you back later. Let's ask them, when Daniela came in, what did you feel? What was your response to her? What did she bring in? Did she bring in more than what you were looking at? Did you have a person and qualities in your mind, or you were just looking at some paper and you were saying points, fund 1, 2, 3, and this is what an ombuds does? Let's ask them. Let's have a conversation, because I'll tell you, the problem is that people don't understand the importance of this person who can facilitate these conversations, who can bring in this whole mindset where handling power imbalances, creating a safe space. I think that is the most important aspect, creating the safe space for them. Everyone can't do it. It's not just, it's like saying, we'll, or maybe this particular room is going to be the Ombuds office and it's available to anyone. It's just a room. It doesn't make anything. That's not the safe space. It's the person who's sitting there who's going to be able to create that safe space for them. So I think that gets missed out on these structures and systems and SOPs. I think it gets out. Look, it's not creating a room. It's creating a safe space. So I think that's
I agree. And I love this conversation, Vikram. I really want to continue it. I have to go. Unfortunately, I have a meeting. I'm sorry that that someone isn't here to be able to.
Well, that's perfect. I think we've done an hour here, and I mean, look, this is how we do these small conversations. So today, what we've ended it. I don't know if you can drop in tomorrow. I'll start the meeting tomorrow. I'll put it out in the group also. I'll put it otherwise also. That I'm going to put it on. What is the issue? If people come in, they come in. They don't come in. What's the problem? Let's the conversation continue. But the next thing that you, Daniela, what you're doing is let's bring other people outside the Ombuds world. Let's have conversations with them. Let's understand them, which is what and what you did with these kids and asking them, I think is a big step. People maybe would not want to do it to show that, oh, people in the university don't know about it. I think what you did is a very important step. So let's get them in and let's take it in the direction that they want to take it in. Let's not create something for them and they say, oh, now come here. Let that be the path that they want to take. So see you. Thank you very much, Daniela. And the meeting is going to be on tomorrow. Just drop in within that hour whenever you have time. If I'm sitting alone, I won't do the recording. I will not go live up till someone's there because I can't talk to myself. I've tried that. It doesn't work for me, but we'll do that.
I don't know if I can come tomorrow. I will try, but Vikram, it is always a pleasure and a joy. You spark a lot of ideas in me, and I'm sure in everybody who's watching. So thank you.
It's been a pleasure speaking to you, and we're going to have these conversations as we go along. So thank you very much, and I'll hopefully see you tomorrow. But otherwise,
okay.